Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Mega Man here from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of the Mega Man marathon of Let's Plays. Now, do you remember previously on the forms of the actual marathon is the fact that recently Mario has recently finished up with Mega Man 1 for the Nintendo Entertainment System, released in 1987, and now it's Sonic's turn for this particular today's video, and especially tomorrow's video also, is the fact that Sonic is now going to be toggling through Mega Man 2, also came out on the Nintendo Entertainment System, originally released in 1988 for Japan or Famicom, and then a year later and everywhere else, I'm assuming so. So even then though, everything else will be self-explanatory right there. As usual, we're going to be, going for the entirety of the game, but even then, though, something is completely different for the table, because even then, while Sonic is going to be concentrating on Mega Man 2, and even then, though, that, as far as I'm aware, Mega Man 2 might actually be the best looking, Mega Man games to date, back in the day, and probably the best selling Mega Man games by far, which is pretty understandable if you ask me, but even then, though, we'll let Sonic able to actually tackle for that game as soon as we're able to actually get into that. So, yeah, without further ado, today was actually forms of the 3rd of August today, so I really cannot believe we're actually going for dates today, very by far quickly and what have you, but even then, enough about this little topic right there, because even then, we've already just got started with the marathon, but even then, once again, he's going to be playing through the Mega Man Legacy Collection, just for the clear imagery, and especially noticeable with something else advanced or anything else that was audible. So with that being said, this time around though, he needs to face off against with 8 Robot Masters instead of the original 6, unlike the original Mega Man. But without further ado, let's get started with Mega Man 2, so on to you, Sonic the Hedgehog. In the year 2000X, a super robot named Mega Man was created. Dr. Light created Mega Man to stop the evil desires of Dr. Wily. However, after his defeat, Dr. Wily created 8 of his own robots to counter Mega Man. Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Sonic the Hedgehog here, and I'm from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And today, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next entry of the forms of the Mega Man Marathon. Yes, we're now going to be tackling through Mega Man 2, released on the Nintendo Entertainment System in around 1988 in Japan or Famicom versions, and I'm assuming that you later in the forms of 1989 for everywhere else. See, Fernando, the version I'm going to be playing through at this point is once again the Mega Man Legacy Collection, just because on a 1080p quality, and as you can see right there, there are 2 different difficulty options. Like, you can either select normal or difficult mode. Meaning the latter means that the Japanese original difficult mode. So the mode I'm going to be tackling through at this point is the forms of difficult mode, just because, well, I feel like I was going to be up for a challenge, because I know for YouTube out there, or YouTubers out there, managed to able to actually select that difficulty everywhere else. So, right from the bat though, much like how it does in Mega Man 1, we actually retains Robot Masters, but this time around though, we actually come across into not 6, but 8 Robot Masters this time around. So we have Bubble Man, Airman, Quickman, Woodman, Crashman, and Heatman, Metal Man, and Flashman. And of course, Dr. Wily is up to no good again, so even then we'll have to stop him once and for all again. So even then though, let's go and get started right there with the forms of Airman first, because I feel like up to the task right there. So yeah, if you remember playing through Mega Man 1 before, you know exactly how Mega Man 2 plays out. He plays exactly like how it does in the original Mega Man, but there are some slight tweaks to it. Like, first of all, the fact that, well, I'm starting to say that the score system is a little bit absent this time around. So, you know, the fact that we actually did manage to collect those, you know, colorful orbs to be able to actually get ourselves a highest amount of points you can get. Well, it's no longer here this time around. Well, thankfully though, thanks to the improved control, and then the likes of how it does in Mega Man 1, it doesn't feel as heavy as compared to the likes of Mega Man 1, quite frankly, but sometimes I will admit though right away, he always comes completely slippery once he was in complete stop, sometimes. But even then though, it doesn't really bother me about it too much though, because even then, as far as Mega Man 2 is concerned, let's get to the actual point of the forms of how the fact that, well, this game usually takes place after the events of Mega Man 1, because of how the fact that, you know, after we actually deal out with Dr. Wily at the very end of the first game, and then Mega Man just sort of leaves him behind, and he forms of Wily stages and all that stuff, or Wily, well, Dr. Wily's Fortress 1. Regrettably though, and then after all that, Dr. Wily managed to able to create 8 of his own original Robot Masters. So even then though, that everything else will be actually bring something new to the table around here, but even then though, that's just how I think it is. So anyways though, for the Airman stage, as you can see right there, it basically takes place in the above the clouds type of syndrome, just like how it does it in the forms of, you know, before when Super Mario Bros. 3 came around, whenever they actually bring us World 5 in new forms of just the Sky Land and all that stuff. So yeah, you get the idea what this solution's going. So, and as usual, much like how it does in Mega Man 1, you know how the fact that Mario did recently tackle for that game, once again there's going to be a lot of jump cuts for this point, especially noticeable when I was trying to do a lot of safe stating, because again, much like how it does in Mega Man 1, this might actually be my first time ever going to be experiencing this game, so even then though, don't expect me too much, I'm not exactly a pure expert at it, so, still, but even then though, there are definitely some improvements over the likes of Mega Man 1, although, to be frankly there for this point is the fact that despite the fact that Mega Man 1 did not sell as well as the second game, I can assuming so that Capcom managed to able to actually release the second game right after releasing Mega Man 1 for almost like a couple of months or so, but even then though, I wasn't entirely sure of the actual history about it, so even then though, yeah. So as usual, self-explanatory, basically we can able to actually, as you see those little doors as you can see right there, this means we actually approach into the very end of the actual levels themselves, while dealing with the actual Robot Masters themselves. So here we go, with the first boss in Mega Man 2, at least depends on what Robot Masters you're going to be dealing with, there's 2 forms of Airman, and as you can see, first death already from the get-go. Jeez, why is it always I always died in a very possible moment in the very first stage of the game, which I feel incredibly bad for myself, which can't be the same with lights of how it does it where Mario accidentally died in the forms of being the Bomb-Man stage in the first game. So anyways, basically the Airman is very simple, as long as you're able to do the strategy as you can see right there. Granted there's a wind current that he's actually going to be pulling that off, which even then though that it might be kind of pretty tricky to dodge through, especially noticeable with this little currents of wind that managed to summon through, but once you deal with all enough damage on him, then you would able to once again retain yourselves the Robot Master's weapons. Even then though, the first weapon that we've got is the air shooter, which can be very helpful in some situations. Also in some situations, we occasionally got ourselves these messages from Dr. Light, so even then we get ourselves the occasional items, like item number 2, which hands out is probably the good item to use, especially noticeable when we get to the very end of the game. Which even then I'll probably show that off until we're able to actually get to the next level in the game, which I'm also able to decide to choose my own. Although they aren't cleverly named though. I mean seriously, item 2, what's the point of like having unique item names as far as I'm aware? So the next stage we're going to be hitting to is Crashman. Now if you actually hold down the jump button, assuming if you're actually going to be playing the PlayStation 4 version by the forms of the Mega Man Legacy Collection for the X button, as you can tell, the fact that the translation for the forms of the Robot Master's intro, that normally these Stars Master are able to constantly going to be moving for this entire time, but if you manage to hold down the jump button or something like that, the stars will actually be replaced as the forms of these fishes in the background, which is, admittedly, I thought it was kind of funny at first, whenever I managed to saw that coming. So, yeah, but even then though, as far as I'm aware, when it comes to the actual differences between Mega Man 2 and 1, especially noticeable in the future games in the series, which, again, that definitely needs to get into Mega Man 3 after whenever I manage to tackle for Mega Man 2 first, so everything else will be checked out there. As you might expect it, that the visuals do look absolute top-notch, more so than the likes of Mega Man 1. It's actually a lot more brighter and vibrant colors, and everything else checks out there. However, I will admit though right away though, that I know from a lot of people seem to get a little bit more paranoid when it comes to sprite flickering in this game, because not only because of the fact that, assuming if you're actually going to be playing on an emulator, or even especially noticeable by the forms of the original cartridge of the game, which it was actually quite easy to get with the original cartridge-only version of Mega Man 2, regrettably. Especially noticeable that it's now built in with the forms of the Nintendo Entertainment System Classic Mini. I think the reason why they choose Mega Man 2 over the likes of any other Mega Man trilogy of the forms of, or any other Mega Man games on the NES Classic Mini, it's most likely because of how the fact that Mega Man 2 is actually popular when it comes to not only for the actual, critically acclaimed, but also a huge success, but it's noticeable by the forms of the selling points of the game also, by the fact that back in the day that was used to be. So, yeah, to get these suggestions with this point, so... Anyways though, as you can see on Crashman stage, we're gonna have to come across into the forms of how the fact that this place is kind of like a pipe sewer type of level like that, but I'm not entirely sure on that one though. But even then, we're actually going to come across into those really annoying, moving, hovering heads every once in a while, which I will admit, though, right away, they can be kind of a nerve-wracking experience, in my opinion, just because of how the fact that they're always trying to get you into the forms of the actual moving platform, as you can see right there, because I'm spending most of my time trying to actually get into this, section right there, so, yeah, if you couldn't tell already, because I'm going to be, you know, going to be first time playing for these kinds of stages like this, to be quite frank. So yeah, you get these suggestions here. So anyways, now we've managed to pass through all that, so now let's go ahead and move on to the next portion of the level. So yeah, because if you couldn't tell already, because of how the fact that the reason why that Mega Man Marathon might actually take a lot out of me to be able to actually record these games like this, because it took me a lot to do when it comes to editing videos and all that stuff, which I will admit though right away, that can get a lot of busy work, especially noticeable that I was like, some situations where I was in a do or die situations like this, that it always becomes very, very common these days, so yeah, you get the idea. You know with these guys from Mega Man 1, these guys make a return, which even then though, they have to wait until the head shows up and then you're trying to kill him, but I was simply just able to use the Mecha Buster itself, so... Anyways though, I'm gonna take the ones in the left route here, just because they might actually contain something rewarding while trying to deal with probably the most annoying enemy also, is the fact that we have to deal with these annoying birds. Good lord, when it comes to able to actually dealing with the enemies themselves in this game, combined with the forms of how the fact that it still has the knockback currents just like in the forms of Mega Man 1, but it does have some sheer amount of, so even then though that, as long as you pay attention to what you're doing, then you will be fine. And there's something new to the table, we actually have an introduction to these E-Tanks, which is basically a godsend when it comes to able to actually healing yourself. In this game in particular, you can only carry up to 4 E-Tanks, as far as I'm aware. Unlike in the forms of Mega Man 3 and the future games and onwards, they can carry up to more of them, so even then though, that makes it very obvious. So, anyways though, once we get to this side here, then we actually get ourselves an extra 1-up, which just like before, it will actually give you a 1-up in the process. So, and that was a really cheap placement right there, which is this little boingy type of enemies like so. And since I'm almost low on health, and if I manage to use my E-Tank right here, then it will actually completely reveals my, well, life meter. So this could be a very godsend if you're having a hard time with these levels like this, especially with the Robot Masters themselves, which I'm glad they actually did manage to introduce that, unlike the ones in Mega Man 1, that you have to find your health pickup as soon as you can. So here we go with Crash Man. His weakness is actually forms of the, well, air shooter, so as long as you're paying attention to his footing, and you should be able to be good to go. So there we go, 2 stages are done, and now let's move on to the next level. And before we get to the next level, we got ourselves, what else? The Robot Master's weapon obtained. So we got ourselves the Crash Bomber, which can be very, very mandatory if we want to able to finish up the main game. So anyways though, but we'll get to more details about the Crash Bomber until we get to, let's go for Metal Man next, because I can see how the fact that a lot of people seem to always start off with Metal Man first, because Metal Man's weapon is without doubt the best weapon in the entirety of the classic Mega Man series. I mean, I'm not kidding when I say that, because even I know, well, it wasn't until whenever we trying to deal with Metal Man first before you're able to obtain the weapon itself. So, for Metal Man, it's basically, the actual level's gimmick is the fact that we actually come across into these conveyor belts, as you can see right there, and a lot of spikes right there, which, admittedly though, it will actually deal a lot of damage on you, so you have to watch out for that, which, just like the forms of the actual official spike obstacles right there, well, except the fact that it doesn't kill Mega Man instantly though, unlike any forms of the actual spikes themselves, so... Anyways though, and you can definitely tell why the fact that the actual chain just sometimes act out very weird. That's only because that's what sprite flickering is for. And even especially noticeable with the forms of the 8-bit emulation and all that stuff. Sometimes they act out very, very odd consecutively. But other than that though, it's not that too much of a big of a deal for me, in my honest opinion though, as to this. So... anyways though, let's go ahead and just use item 2 here. I think I haven't talked about this. If you manage to use item 2, you can actually just manage to able to place your platforming missile right onto the opposite side, and if you land on there very, very quickly, and then you should able to actually come across into these other bonusy goodies, like the forms of the actual alternative routes. As you can see, I've got my extra 1-up, and especially noticeable, I've already got my extra 1-up ever since during the likes of the Crash Man stage, which I think is actually very, very handy of the ability, especially noticeable how the fact that if you want to get yourselves extra 1-ups, and even especially noticeable with these E-Tanks, this game is very generous with extra 1-ups in addition to these E-Tanks as well, so even then, everything else will be just as welcoming. And even though, it's not something you should probably, under circumstances though, anyway though, because as you can see, that again, because of the sprite flickering, which is not only because it can be visually distracting, it's also not pleasant to look at. I can understand because of how the fact that this is on the NES to begin with, but until we get to the future Mega Man games, most notably Mega Man 9 and 10, regrettably I know, and even especially noticeable with Mega Man 7 and 8, which thankfully though, the sprite limitations doesn't feel horribly all erratic. So anyways though, if you want to get back onto this particular, well, the actual stage itself, then by all means you can actually use item 2, so that way you can able to actually just to get back on track here. So, you can't deal damage on these little springy looking enemies over there, that's kind of underwhelming. But anyways though, oh yeah, I just realized I'm low on health, so I think it's about time to able to actually use my E-Tanks as soon as I can, so yeah, I might as well able to use one of them, so... But again, you can only carry up to 4 of them, so even then, that makes it a little bit obvious at this point. So, here we go, folks, on to Metal Man right there. So, I'm presuming Mega Buster might deal a damage on, well, Metal Man, but I could assuming there might be some consumption, because I could assuming I did manage to try and test it out with any other weapons that I haven't really looked up on the Mega Man Wikipedia recently. So I really do apologize if I'm a little bit too rusty with the forms of, you know, any other Mega Man Wikipedia master Wikipedias out there. So I really do apologize for that point. So I almost gonna die again. So thankfully though, I've got myself my spare E-Tanks. So that way I can able to actually just, well, classify to able to finish him off. Sometimes it comes off as a really odd pattern right there, but in forms of the, you know, the actual metal blade itself, which even then, we'll get to the actual weapon itself as soon as you're able to actually demolish his health, and booyah, he's done. So it's not too bad of a level when it comes to able to actually getting all the way over there, but the actual fight itself can get pretty tricky sometimes because you have to deal with conveyor belts here and now as well. So here we go, here's the best weapon in the entirety of the classic Mega Man series, Metal Blade. Man, I'm really looking forward to able to try that weapon out, especially noticeable when we get to the next level, Flashman. I think Flashman to me though is probably the easiest stage overall when it comes to the actual game itself, honestly, because even then, there is a little bit of a more likely an element about this stage is the fact that you get slipped off all over the place. Like you can definitely tell why if we actually gone to a complete stop. So even then though that actually I might as well able to pick up this health health thingy right there. Which even then though that once again you actually increase your health amount. So that's pretty welcoming though right there. So yeah, I don't know why I got blown back off from it for some reason. So yeah, you know this little walls over there? Well, that's what the Crash Bombers usually comes into play. Every time you actually try to use the Crash Bomber, you simply insert that wall over there, or the breakable wall rather, which again only can be breakable with the Crash Bomber, and then that way you should be able to actually proceed. Especially noticeable with these secret areas in combined. So yeah, it's a very welcoming and nifty ability altogether. And actually, I might as well grab that one up over there, which I might as well able to actually easily obtain that, while simply just able to use my item 2 real quickly. And thankfully though, much like how it does in Mega Man 1, every time you beat the stage, your weapons counts also magically regenerated. So even then, if you're having a hard time with the game itself so far, then by all means you can able to actually just, well, I don't know about that. So anyways though, let's go back into Mega Buster real quickly. So even then though that, it still only shoots at one direction, just like how it does in Mega Man 1. And especially noticeable in the future games and onwards. Well, until when we actually get into the future Mega Man installments, well, we'll find out sooner or later. But even then though, oh yeah, we have these little jerk-offs yet again. Because basically, these enemies do make a return ever since during the likes of Mega Man 1, but they stand completely still this time around though, unlike the ones in the green variations in Mega Man 1. They usually move around all over the place when it comes to doing those kinds of stuff like that, so overall, it should get some not much potential going. And I think I need to regenerate myself here, so I need to use my Crash Bomber real quickly. And hopefully I'm also able to actually grab that health. Oh shoot, I think my jump timing on that is a little bit strict on that one. But I guess I might as well pass it on that. So you can actually... What's nice about this though, as you can see right there, you can actually completely ignore any sort of obstacles as you can see right there, including enemies themselves, which is very understandable. So yeah, with the metal blade right there, you can actually aim it onto a multitude of directions, or in this case 8 directions. Well, I don't know about downwards though, so even then I haven't really tested that out, but even then though, you can actually shoot in any direction. So yeah, this Mega Man right there managed able to actually aim as many targets with the forms of this metal blade, but not his Mega Buster, so I don't know why. Anyways though, the reason why I'm going up here is because not only I can able to actually skip the entire sequence with these little jerk-offs here, but also, get this, we got ourselves an E-Tank right there. So, yeah, because of that though, this game is very generous with not only extra 1-ups, but also E-Tanks as well, so I think I've already established that before. So even then though, we're actually at the very end of Flashman stage, which is not that hard actually, I will admit though right away. So here we go with Flashman himself, which... Even though that's all I can really think about for the time. And his weakness is actually forms of his metal blade, because as you can see, he'll actually do a certain amount of damage right there, assuming if you get close to him. And it's not that much of a challenge, assuming if you actually try to able to use that in the first place. So there we go, that concludes Flashman stage. So, yeah. We're actually going into the halfway point of the game already, but even then though, because of how the fact that it might be still a very, very short of the game, and as you can see right there, we've got ourselves a time stopper, which can be very, very handy in some situations. And we've got ourselves another message from Dr. Light, and this time around we've got ourselves item 3, which again is not cleverly named, mind you, but at least we can able to actually use that in some rare occasions, which even then we'll get to that as soon as we get to the very end of the game, incredibly though. I just realized about something, is that between item 2 and item 3, they always share the exact same color scheme every time when Mega Man is actually in red formation, so that sounds a little bit odd to admittedly know. But even then, let's move on to Quick Man, I think Quick Man might be a little bit difficult of a level because of this one particular mechanic, or in this case in the actual stage elements about this stage, is the fact that we need to dodge a lot of lasers. And by the way, oh yeah, there's a one up there in case if you want it. And because of that though, with these giant lasers, they're about to come across into either each of the side of the screen. Well, not from here though, but even then until the next translation for this particular, well, until this, after this sequence anyway, is this particular sequence. It goes absolutely insanely fast, and then to make matters even much difficult than that, is the fact that these lasers will instantly kill you. So you can then know that if you touch those lasers, then boom, your health will be depleted entirely. So that's just, this might actually be one of the more difficult levels in this game so far though, which is very understandable for that some situations there. But aggressively at this time, as far as this time forth, then it's not that much of a big of a deal. Well, the only parts that I might as well able to actually find is a little bit tricky is actually at the very end of the level, which even then we'll get to those until we're able to actually come towards that, so. Anyways though, today was actually forms of the 3rd of August 2018, so I probably should explain about the fact that with the more Nintendo related stuff actually, because even then, so far that Nintendo Switch has been almost selling for 20 million units so far. Well, almost to 20 million units as far as this particular system goes. I think Nintendo Switch is actually doing very, very well when it comes to the actual selling points, which I think is very, very good. And by the way, for this laser section I was on about, this is by far the most trickiest laser sections that you can get, because if you do not make it as pixel perfect as possible, then you will instantly die for that. So, yeah. And by the way, the air shooter is very good when it comes to able to actually dealing with these jerk-offs with the forms of these little leg parts. So even then, if you want to deal with them that way, then by all means, you can able to actually just classify as using that. So, anyways though, we're actually at the very end of Quick Man stage already from the start. So even then though, that the only things he doesn't like though is actually being slow as a snail. So I think that's pretty obvious because this man is actually known as Quick Man. So, I believe his weakness is actually forms of the Time Stopper, but you can only deal damage of him like a half of it though. But even then, aside from that though, I guess certain Crash Bomber might deal some of the damage on him, which can be good for some scenarios, like as you can see right there. Although he can be very tricky in some situations because he's going way too fast, almost like fast like Sonic the Hedgehog of all things, or myself included, regrettably. And would you look at that, I've actually beat this boss with only a little bit of health left. Jeez, that was actually a very close call. But anyways though, now we're done with Quick Man, so now we can actually get ourselves the also a very good weapon to use, and that's the forms of Quick Boomerang, which can be very good in some of these levels, specifically in the forms of the next stage we're going to be hitting to at this point, is the forms of Bubble Man. And I can assume this might actually take place in the forms of the underwater level, so I just really hate water, but that's just how it is. But I'm very different from Mega Man though, because Mega Man, unlike me, like, I cannot believe that he managed to survive underwater, unlike me, for like a couple of seconds or so before I drowned. But that's just how it is to me. So yeah, with the Quick Boomerang, you're able to actually kill these all kinds of robots so fast and quick, which is actually very, very good of the weapon. But even then though, that could be very good in some situations, most notably in this stage in particular, Bubble Man. Because of that though, we're going to be strictly getting down to the underwater segments until we're able to actually go all the way down. But even then though, we'll get to that point as soon as we're able to actually come towards that. So, anyways though, so let's go ahead and get down here and able to take down these little shell looking enemies over there, which can be easily be defeated while simply just able to get this shell off of its head, and then we can able to actually get into the actual underwater itself. So yeah, there's this little particular mini boss as you can see right there, and basically his weakness is actually forms of the Quick Boomerang, which you can able to aim on this little light thingy on its head, and if you deal with that certain amount of damage, then you would able to actually just to continue on. And this is what the most difficult part about this stage in particular, especially noticeable in the forms at the very end of the game, here we got ourselves these spikes with the water physics. So even then though, chances are if you manage to jump for a little bit too long, then chances are you might as well instantly kill yourself with these spikes. So That's by far the most trickiest part about this stage in particular, because if you jump at the wrong time, or even just about to be jumping a little bit too long regrettably, then you would able to actually kill yourself, and then you have to restart the entire beginning underwater segment again. So, that could be very tricky, I will admit though right away, but it wasn't until when we get to the very end of the game that we probably expected at this point. So, anyways though, let's pick up these more of those quick burrowing ammo counts, so even then we could potentially try and able to not to run out of them regrettably for that point. Again, much like how it does in Mega Man 1, that the item pickup can get pretty randomized though, just like how it does it previously. I don't think Mario actually mentioned about that, I don't think. Well, if at least if you actually play this on a normal easy difficulty, basically the random item pickups will be a lot more easy to actually pick up with, because even then, you can able to actually just to go ahead and get as many item pickups as much as you want. So, anyways though, we actually at the very end of Bubble Man stage. So now we're going to be entering the actual boss fight itself. So pursuing his weakness is actually forms of the, once again, Metal Blade, just like the forms of Flashman. But we'll also give us a demonstration with, yeah, it doesn't, oh, it actually does a good amount of damage, and let's just go and use our E-tanks. So that way we could able to actually, refill our health regrettably, and yeah, there he goes. Alright, not bad for this particular Robot Master. So we've only got about, like, let's just say 2 more left actually, before we move on to the actual Dr. Wily stages themselves. But even then though, it gets a little bit more different, and especially with the production values can get a little bit more better this time. Because even then, we'll get to that though until we get to the next video. Because even then, now we've got ourselves a Bubble Lead. Which even then though, that could be very mandatory if we want to be able to finish up the main game. So let's move on to Heatman stage. Because after all, we've got ourselves the Bubble Man's weapon, but he forms of the Bubble Lead. So that way we can deal a twice the amount of damage with the forms of Heatman. So this stage feels kind of similar to the likes of Fireman stage from Mega Man 1. Except we have to deal with, you know, these invisible platforms or disappearing platforms in the likes of Mega Man 1? Well, they are pretty much a specialty when it comes to, like, this stage in particular, because as you expected, that there's going to be a lava in this particular place. But even though, just like spikes in forms of the entirety of the Mega Man series, if you touch the lava, then it's instant death for you, so you have to watch out for that. And it's also the same with the likes of how it does in the Mario games especially too. So anyways though, I really love the fact that with item 2, I can just simply skip the almost entirety of these portions of the actual levels themselves, in addition to these disappearing platforms as you can see right there, which regrettably I know that I did have a hard time with these disappearing platforms, which until we get to Mega Man and Bass, that game is very strict when it comes to disappearing platforms and such. But even then, as long as you know what you're doing with the actual pattern, then you should be able to be fine. But if you're first time playing for these levels like this, especially noticeable in Mega Man and Bass coming up, then it'll give us a lot of frustration and all that stuff, which even then, I'm hoping that won't be seems the case though, regrettably. So anyways though, because yeah, there are some situations how the fact these disappearing platforms will attempt to screw you over every nowadays, because even then, once you get to this point right there, well, not in that area, mind you, but in this section in particular, if you must use a crash bomb while trying to able to explode this particular wall over there, well, we can simply go for that no problem. However though, if that disappearing platform just managed to able to appear out of nowhere in this little properly timed react to it, and if you did not expect to see that coming, then it will actually shove you to the bottomless pit down below, and you have to restart the entirety of that section again. So, speaking of this most difficult section, here's the forms of the majority of the disappearing platforms. So, it's all about timing going on here, but as long as you're able to actually use item 2 right there, although ironically, it's the fact that I don't have my item 2 refilled it yet, but I can simply just actually gonna do this the hard way fashion. So even then, the first part wasn't that much of a big of a deal though, other than this part, because even then, if you screwed that one up, chances are if you land on that lava right there, or the magma fire lava right there, then, you know, it's instant death for you. Unless if you're trying to pick up that 1-up down there, which I might as well do that. And if I use item 2, as soon as that little disappearing platform disappears, and I can simply skip almost the entirety of the actual levels themselves, which is very, very useful, regrettably, I know. So anyways though, let's go ahead and use our, well, let's just simply just use the Airman's weapon for the time being, because even then though, we need to deal with these jerk-offs again. So, oh yes, I need to actually pick that up, although I haven't really filled up my entirety of my health yet, but close though. Pretty close though. Anyways, though, let's switch over to the Bubble Led's weapon. See if then though we can able to deal with Heatman stage, or in this case, just Heatman himself. As far as I'm aware though, as far as the actual Robot Masters themselves, I'm presuming Heatman might be a little bit tricky as far as the actual Robot Master itself, because he's constantly teleportating all over the place. But as long as you have yourselves a good timing or judgment for that matter, then you would able to be fine with that. And that was also very close, because I've almost gonna die right there. Seriously, that's 2 stages in a row when it comes to able to actually almost like get killed by the Robot Masters themselves. Oh jeez, man. Anyways though, so now we've got ourselves also a very good weapon to use, and that is the Autonic Fire, which is kind of like how it does it in the Firestorm for Mega Man 1, but a little bit more different from that. And after being that level, we've got ourselves the final item from Dr. Light that we've actually got from him, and that's the forms of Item 1. Item 1 is kind of like the likes of Item 3 for this some specific for this matter, but I'll show those items off until we're able to get to the final few stages later. See, Fernando, with that being said though, we've done with Fireman stage, or no, Heatman stage, sorry. So now we can able to move on to the last Robot Master before we get into the Dr. Wily stages. See, then everything else will be doubly checked in here for the most part though, so I'm hoping I don't have as many trouble as far as it used to be though, regrettably, so, you know. Okay, I have to do a quick editing right there because I need to fetch my drink real quickly, because you know how the fact with the forms of commentary on certain things that it always gives my throat a little bit dried up. But as long as I got myself my drink right there, so even then I've managed to able to regain myself for that particular voice pitching. So anyways though, so let's go ahead and move on to Woodman. I should probably point things out right away though, is the fact that with Item 1 and Item 2 and Item 3, with Item 1, that's how the fact that you can actually use the actual blimp as the platform of all things. And then Item 2, as you saw already, that you can able to actually land on this particular rocket jet, and you can able to actually take the alternative routes to able to discover secrets. So that's very handy with those 2 items. But I rarely use Item 3 for one particular exception, which we'll get to that in the very end of the level, or the very end of the game. So here we go folks, on to the final Robot Master level, and that's the forms of the Woodman stage. Which, as far as I'm aware, because this might actually be the first stage I've ever encountered in my life, whenever I managed to, first time I played this game on my Nintendo Wii Virtual Console version, which I haven't really played too much on Mega Man on the forms of the past few years or so. That's only because I was more comes to collecting stuff. But even then, aside from that though, that's everything. That's all I could really think about for the time. And I can definitely see why a lot of people seem to always go for this particular stage for last. Just because, you know, the fact with the Heatman stage that we've already got for the actual weapon, well, I think that's what the actual stage specialty will become. So even then, though, that could be a little bit more potentials there. So, by the way, you have to fight this particular robot type, or in this case, this robot looking Pestris of all things. Like, you have to fight him like 3 times or so, especially on the, like, let's just say on the difficult mode. But even then, that's just how I think it is. However, though, if you manage to play this game on the Japan version of, or the Japanese version of Mega Man 2 or Rockman 2, as what it's known for, you're actually just pretty much stuck with just only one difficulty, and that's the forms of difficult mode. Whilst in the forms of the international version of the game, there you can actually select up to 2 different difficulties, normal or difficult being the, you know, the latter being of the forms of the Japanese difficulty. So, screw you, Monkey Man. I did not expect to see how this will turn out then, but oh well, at least we'll try that again. But anyways though, but regrettably though, I don't have as many death situations, unlike the forms of Mega Man 1 though. But until when we get to like Wily Stage 4, then it'll get a really a lot of troublesome for most people, because even then, I can definitely see why a lot of people seem to have a lot of trouble with Wily Stage 4, which again, we'll get to that until we get to the next video, because as far as I'm aware though, we're actually almost late towards the game already, assumingly because of how it depends on your skills you're going to be performing at. Especially noticeable how the fact that I was still in sending you to partnership before things. Now the fact of the matter is though, oh sweet, I've got my extra life back. Thank you very much. So even then though, that could get my a lot more potentials there, especially noticeable how the fact that again, this game is very generous with extra 1-ups, so these little rapid looking robots there can easily be defeated with the forms of the metal blade, which seriously, I really love this weapon, especially noticeable how the fact that you can actually aim in a multitude of directions, which is always very handy. But even then though, that could be something worth mentioning for this. So anyways though, let's go ahead and go down here and hopefully we might be able to actually, I think we're almost there towards the end of the level actually, before we're able to face off against with Woodman. I can definitely see why a lot of people seem to always go for Woodman for the final robot master before taking on Dr. Wily. But even then, yeah, that's what I can really say about this. These little bird, flamingo type of enemies always reminds me of the forms of the enemies from Super Mario Bros. 2 USA for some reason. Although except the fact they're a little bit more of a pain to dodge though, I will admit though right away. So here we go folks, this is the forms of well, let's just say atomic fire weapon, where you can only obtain from Heatman stage. If you manage to charge up your shots well enough, assuming if you're actually trying to deal as much as damage on the forms of Woodman, then you would able to actually classify to able to actually deal with them from just as useful as you can see there. So if you manage to charge it well enough, then you can simply just able to deal a good amount of damage on the forms of Woodman, and there you go folks, that concludes Woodman stage. And beyond that, we also got ourselves the final weapon in the entirety of Mega Man 2, we got ourselves the Leaf Shield. So yeah, that's what I could really think about. So yeah, join me next time for the next level, so yeah.